I woke up, dazed and confused. My best friend was standing over me looking worried. I realized I was around his place. I sat up and tried to gain my bearings. "What happened?" I asked. "Dude, you've been asleep for about 20 minutes, he replied. What? I was shocked. I don't remember falling asleep. I left the room for a couple seconds and came back and found you sprawled on my bed. At first, I thought you were joking around, but then you started screaming, as though you were in pain," he explained. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah, I guess I'm just a bit tired. And I don't know what the scream was about," I replied. "A bit tired? You must be extremely tired. I couldn't get you up whatsoever," he told me. I looked at the time. I needed to be home by 9. It was 8 already, and I lived a couple miles away. I said my goodbyes. He made sure I was okay to get home, and I made my way to the bus stop, just around the corner. I always made sure I was at least 5 to 10 minutes early, just in case the bus came early. In this case, I was right. The bus just got there a few seconds before I got there. I got on and paid the bus driver. The bus was eerie. The lights flickered on and off. No one was on the bus. It was an old model. The buses had gone under a revamp a few years back, and it seemed like they didn't bother with this one. I just passed it off as being an old bus, so that explained the lighting. I was also getting on at the end of the bus's route, which explained the lack of people, so I chose a seat and sat down. The bus's journey was usually 45 minutes long, and I didn't have anything better to do. And because of the incident around Tom's, I decided to sleep to pass the time. It didn't take me long to drift off. During the journey, I had a terrifying dream. It started in the desert. It must have been around midday. There was a light breeze that sounded like whispering. I couldn't precisely make out everything, but I could make out a couple words.
"Escape. Never alone. I'm coming."
I walked aimlessly through the desert, always with the whispering following me. After about 10 minutes of this, I tripped over something. I got up, brushed the sand off my clothes and out of my hair. I looked back to see what I had tripped over. Sticking out of the sand was a decaying, dismembered arm. I threw up. When I looked back, in the distance, I saw a humanoid figure. It stood there for a few seconds, then seemed to move towards me. There was a massive jolt and I woke up, flying over a couple seats in front of me. I was greeted by a blinding light. Where did this light come from? It was late at night. My eyes adjusted to the light. I scanned the interior of the bus. The driver's side in front of the bus had been crumpled in. The windows had been smashed. I assumed the bus had crashed, and I ran to the front of the bus to see if I could help the driver in any way. I saw blood running from the driver's seat. What I saw made me throw up. The driver was extremely mutilated. His arm was missing. His torso looked as if it was torn open by something, and his face had scratches. Deep scratches. The weird thing was the cave in front of the structure hadn't been touched in front of him. This was more like a creature attack. I ran off the bus. I was busy worrying about the situation and noticed where I was. I just wanted to get away from that bus. After 5 minutes of running, I stopped to take in my surroundings. The human mind is a complex system. When incredibly stressed, it disregards our senses to pick up and shows us what we want to see. When I was running, I hadn't even noticed this was a desert from my dream. I fell to the ground, questioning how I got here. Why was I here? I could hear the whispering again, a bit clearer now.
No escape. Never escape. You belong. I'm coming.
This chilled me to the bone. I just wanted to go home. I looked up, and there it was again, the figure. It was closer this time. Again it stood there, and then moved towards me. I woke up. This time, the sound of a horrible high-pitched screech. It sounded like it was nearby. I was still in the desert, but this time it was night. I began walking towards the dreadful noise, as if I was stuck here. I might as well see if I can stop it. I noticed there was no longer any whispering. This filled me with relief. It took me 10 minutes to find where it was coming from. It was a set of stairs leading down to the underground. I was terrified to go down there. What if this was where the figure resided? I have no idea what this thing's intentions is, but I can't assume it's malicious, I thought to myself. It was a risk I had to take. I made my way down the stairs. It was almost completely dark, lit only by a candle every now and again. I decided to grab one, just so I had some light. The cavern seemed to go on forever, and as I made my way down, I could faintly smell something terrible. After what seemed like forever, I finally got to a heavy metal door. I opened it slowly. I was welcomed by an overwhelming stench of decay, and the screeching noise was louder than ever. I held my breath and surveyed the surroundings. I was in a huge corridor which led to multiple rooms. I checked inside the first room, which I came to. It was empty except for a lonely chair in the middle, and cuffs chained coming from the floor. I checked the next room. Again empty. This time I could make something out, written on the wall. I walked up to examine it. Illuminated. The candle illuminated the words in a dull orange glow. It was written in blood. There is no escape. There will never be an escape. You belong to me now. I'm coming for you. This scared me. This is what the whispers in the breeze had been saying. I needed to get away from here. As I turned around and ready to leave, I felt some type of liquid land on my face. It was warm. I dabbed some on the top of my finger. It was red. I looked up in terror. There, chained to the ceiling, was an unconscious naked body. Blood leaked from its mouth and eyes. Each limb looked at it as sawn off, and soon back on again. The chest had been ripped open to reveal the person's ribs. The area of the genitals had been mutilated far beyond recognition. It was sickening. This had looked like it had been done recently. I ran out of the room and darted for the stairs. What type of sick fuck would do this? Doesn't want to do this to me as well too, I said quietly under my breath. I began escalating the stairs. I was approximately 1/3 the way up when I heard something that made me stop in my tracks. I heard a low growling coming from higher up the stairs. I dropped the candle and ran back down the stairs. Behind me, the creature's activity picked up, probably alerted to my presence. I got back into the corridor and ran halfway down and hid in a room. This room was exactly like the other rooms, empty. This room had the strongest stench of decay. My eyes had to adjust to limited light from the candles in the corridor. When they did, I could make out a pile of dead bodies in the corner. I could hear footsteps in the corridor. They were close. It sounded like bare feet tapping on the floor. I had no choice but to hide. Unfortunately, the only place to hide was in the pile of dead bodies. I buried myself into the pile, trying to cover myself completely with lifeless corpses. They had similar injuries as a person hanging from the ceiling. I made a small gap between the bodies so I could see out. I looked towards the doorway to see if it walked in. The creature making those growling noises. It was a decaying, thin figure with loose skin falling off. It had longer than normal legs and arms that reached the floor. The creature had 3 fingers and toes, with huge claws that were at least 5 inches long. Its face was gaunt. It had a large mouth, spaced away with sharp teeth, which forced it into a grin. Where there should have been eyes, there were indentations. Its nose was snake-like. Its head was smooth. There were no visible ears to speak of. It was also shaking, like you would if you were cold, but more rapidly, like spasms. The creature stood in the center of the room. I was holding my breath. I didn't know how much longer I could take of the pressure. It was another 10 seconds before it left the room. As I heard it wander down the hall, I let out a long sigh of relief, and was also choked by the stench of inhaling. The thing must have heard, and rushed back into the room. I held my breath again, hoping it wouldn't find me. It opened its wide mouth, and reached out with its long tongue. The tongue darted in all directions, and focused itself towards a pile of corpses. The tongue retreated back into its mouth, and it started making its way towards me. It stood over the pile and said with a raspy voice,
"There is no escape. There will never be an escape. You belong to me now. I am here for you."
It slashed at the corpses, slicing them clean in half to reveal my hiding spot. I looked up at the thing. Its naturally grinning mouth protruded into an even wider grin. It lifted up its incredibly long arm and slashed down. I woke up again. I was on the bus, and the driver was yelling at me about missing my stop. I looked out the window to tell me where I was. I told him it was the very next one. I was dazed and confused. Was it really a dream? I thought to myself. It all seemed so real. The stench, the texture, everything was so vivid. I got off the bus and made my way home. I was slightly late, and my mother was yelling at me. I didn't care. I was just glad to be in reality and away from that creature. I hugged my mother crying. A couple hours later, I was preparing for bed. Although I wasn't planning on sleeping much, I took off my shirt and walked to the bathroom to brush my teeth. I looked in the mirror, and what I saw terrified me. There was a huge gash along my chest, which looked fairly new. When I saw it, pain rushed to the wound, crippling me. I collapsed to the floor. I heard someone walk in. I looked up and saw the creature. It knelt down to my level and whispered in the same tone as before.
"There is no escape. There will never be an escape. You belong to me now. I'm here for you."